Good afternoon. This is Ron. It's good to have you with us today. We're going to be doing a scope talking about step families and the holidays. Glad you're with us. But today is a little bit special because it's going to be Ask a Counselor Anything. Anything about anything. And then I'll find somebody who knows the answer. Miss Pastor invited others to join. LOL, SK join. Nice to have you here. If you're new to this scope, type your name. A new Christine. Hey, nice to have a new Christine with us. We don't want the old one. We want the new one. Glad you're here. N. Burns joined. Nice to have you. Obama, I don't know what that means. And Ray, Texas joined. Nice to have you here. I know I crucify your names. I know I do. I'm sorry. I try. You get old. You can't see very well. My name's Ron Deal, if you don't know who I am, and we talk about life, relationships, and marriage and family and stuff on this scope. We do it every Tuesday at 12:30 Central Time, if you didn't know, and then throughout the week as life happens. And there's going to be more scopes this week because we are hosting our Summit on Step Family Ministry in California coming up this Friday and Saturday from Irvine, California. We'd love to have you join us, although it may be a little late if you haven't made plans. But we'll be doing some live scopes from there. So at least you can stay in touch with some of the guest speakers and artists that were going to be there. So glad to have you. Let's talk about tips for managing step stress at the holidays. Hey, how are you? I'm good. Thank you for asking. Remember, it's Ask a Counselor Anything Day. What a nice thing to ask about me. Instead of asking for you. That's so nice. I appreciate that. I got Shannon in the room. Teaching or helping families. I appreciate that. I got Shannon in the room, Nicole's in the room. They're going to be watching for the question. So as I'm rambling, if you ask a question, they're going to grab it, make sure that I see it. So feel free to fire away questions about anything. In the meantime, let's talk about holidays, step families, and step stress, right? Because it's here. And it's something about, I tell you what, events, births, weddings, deaths, transitions where a child comes to live with you. They were living in the other home, now they're with you more often than they were. Any sort of transitions like that actually become pretty significant moments of stress for families. And the holidays is one of those times that just kind of brings it back up. You may have settled into your co-parenting kids back and forth between homes routine. You may have settled into the school routine. You may have settled in some other things in your family. And hey, maybe the step relationships are beginning to really take root and grow in ways that you really want them to, and then boom, Thanksgiving rolls around or Christmas rolls around, and there's something about the holidays that just kind of brings it all up again. And there's a good reason for that, folks. There's good reason for that. And part of it is when kids are going back and forth, when the adults are trying to figure out schedules and you're having to negotiate with the other home more than you frequently do. All of those things tend to make a difference in the level of stress between family members because you're having to interact more. It brings all this stuff up, okay? It just does. So I've got an article online at FamilyLife.com called 13 Ideas to Manage Holiday Step Stress. 13. We're just going to do 3, okay? You can go find the article. We'd love for you to gain and learn from all of it. Let me start with number 1. First one I want to share with you out of that list. And it's this: give your kids permission to get along with and enjoy their time in the other home. Now, it's interesting that this is one of our tips because yesterday we broadcast a radio feature, a 60-second radio feature that we do on outlets around the country, and you can also sign up and get it on Facebook or have it tweeted to you. And Nicole tells me that the feature from yesterday has gotten a lot of shares and a lot of interest, and it's a lot of high traffic, more than average. And it's called The Cowardly Co-Parent. And what I talked about in that 60-second feature is today's feature. Today's feature, The Cowardly Co-Parent, is about when you lie to your kids because you want them to spend extra time with you, or when you kind of tell the story whatever the story is about the other home, about your ex-spouse, about what's going on, parenting, whatever. You tell the story in such a way that it skews it in a way that you're hoping that will win the child's affections and that you'll keep them closer to you. You won't lose them. You won't. Let me tell you something. There's a few things that get me riled up in life, and this is one of them. When adults use kids as pawns, when you take those kids hostage because of a need that you have, it's wrong. It's wrong. My wife and I have this ministry that we're involved in West Africa and Ghana. It involves children who have been trafficked, who've been sold by their parents into the work industry and the fishing industry, and they spend the rest of their lives as indentured servants, basically. That's wrong. Okay, holding your kids hostage with this emotional manipulation that says, you love us more, right? You want to spend more time here, right? We have a nicer, game system, TV, bedroom. We have more stuff. All that kind of stuff that you throw at a child to try to somehow hold their affections. That's holding them hostage. It's wrong. That's your need, not theirs. I don't know what to say. I mean, honestly, that's just self-serving. And if that's you and you know that it's you, please look in the mirror. Just own it. Ask yourself what's behind that. What am I afraid of? What's my concern? If I don't do this, what's going to happen? And at the end of that, I know you're afraid of losing something. Okay, I get it. Makes sense. But that doesn't justify the games. This is a kid. And I don't care if they're 25 or 45 or 5. It's a kid. Don't do that. Give them permission to get along with, to love, to like, to enjoy the people in the other home while they're in the other home. You will miss them. You can stay in touch. Technology is an amazing thing. You will miss them. It won't satisfy your heart. You will miss them. It does not mean you hold them hostage. Give them your permission. That's tip number 1. Number 2, and this one has an oxymoron in it. Plan, 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 and be flexible. I know that sounds weird. Let me explain. Plan, plan, plan. When you have multiple households, potentially multiple baby mamas, multiple folks who are invested, grandparents, you know the deal, right? You got to start making phone calls and emails and sending text messages and doing stuff early. They're laughing at me. You can hear it in the background. See, they're laughing at me. Yep. Hello. Come on. Can I get an amen? Somebody give me an amen on this Periscope today. Try to get out in front. Try to get out in front and plan. And at the same time, you got to have this flexibility attitude that says we're going to do the best we can, but we don't know what's going to happen, right? We plan. We try to set in stone dates and times, and I'll bring this, and don't forget to bring the math book, and all the things that kind of, all the logistics, and you try to get out in front of that because there's lots of people involved. And then have that flexible attitude, because when the day comes, it may not come the way you planned it. It may not, and that's frustrating, right? And that has to do with personalities and agendas, and yeah, we get it. Plan, plan, plan. Best you can. At the end of the day, be flexible. Somebody asked a really good question, and I have, wow, how do you answer this one? What is the meaning of life? I don't know what's the meaning of life. The meaning of life is join God in who he is. He made us in his image. We might as well act as if we are made in his image. And I think what that means is being most like him will bring us the most satisfaction and purpose and meaning in life. Becoming like him, so to speak. Will we ever get there? No. But becoming like him in the sense of how we're designed and who we are to truly reflect what he has created in us to be will bring us the best life that we could possibly have here on earth. But ultimately, it brings us a closer relationship with him and that's eternity. Okay, that's all I got on that. Tip number 3, moving on. Honor your traditions. Honor your traditions. Talked to somebody today. There's a wedding coming up soon. You know, it reminded me of how's that go? Something borrowed, something new. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. So let's apply that with step families. Something old, you want to use traditions that are old. You want to keep those as best you can. That's kind of a marker in the ground for kids and for adults, for you. You know, we always do this nativity set. We always put it here. We always dress it up. We do that. Are you a teacher? Yes, I am a teacher and a therapist and a family author. And see all those books back there? Yeah, I wrote those. And run a ministry with FamilyLife that specifically is for blended families, FamilyLife Blended. Thanks for asking. Good question. Something old, so bring those old traditions in with as you can. But the whole nature of a step family is learning how to find a new usness among the family, right? Your new traditions, so something old, but something new. We want to find something that's kind of unique to the new family. So, and it could just be that you're tweaking an old tradition, but you're adding something to it, or you're trying it in a new way, a different kind of food for the holidays, or, you know, there's endless amount of options. You're just looking for that old and new. Now, by the way, anytime you change an old and do it a little bit different, sometimes people react. Sometimes people get all out of kilter because that old is not the same thing that it's always been anymore. And you'll notice. If you strike a chord, you'll discover who it's with and how they're feeling about it. It could be grandma, and it could be one of the kids, but you'll discover what that is. And be patient with that. Doesn't mean you did the wrong thing. It just means that this is a change they didn't necessarily ask for. So you have to be willing to adapt to the change, give it a go, right? Something old, something new, something borrowed. It could be, what's your tradition? So, you know, wife and her kids and husband and his kids, if that's your situation, learn from the other people, the new people. And when I say new, they could be, you know, 7, 8, 10 years into your step family, but still there's something that they brought to the table. So what you're doing over time is you're finding the new us, the new stuff that you're going to do that's kind of, it tells the story of your family, okay? That's where we're going with all of this. So year after year after year, it adds up to a new identity of the family. And the holidays is a good time to try to begin to do this. Challenging, because not everybody welcomes all the change and the new things. And stressful, because it means adapting to stuff I didn't really ask for or want, or I didn't see coming, but an opportunity. Oh, it's hard to keep all that in mind, but it's all of those things. Challenging, stressful, and yet an opportunity. It is very challenging if we were to find new things every day. Yeah, right. So there's some wisdom to don't add new all the time. Don't add new all the time. One thing, you know, the earlier you are in your family's story, I call it the crock pot, right? Because you just got to start cooking, and you cook in a crock pot. So the earlier you are in the family story, the less change you want to make. So maybe there's a whole lot of old and one thing new, right? But after a few years, you might try 2 or 3 things new. You might try adapting, or you've just settled into a pattern by then. That's great too. But don't overwhelm a lot of people. Question, okay? Let's take some of your questions. Ask a counselor. You'll find out real quick counselors don't have all the answers, but I'll do the best I can. So mom met stepdad while still married. I still resent that. So I think if I'm understanding the question, your wife or your partner met the guy that has now stepdad to your kids while you guys were still married. Am I not getting that right?
They're the kid.
Mom met stepdad while still married. Oh, are you the child?
She's the adult child.
Okay, so your mom met your stepdad while mom was still married to your dad. Got it. I still resent that. Well, yeah. Yeah, that hurts, right? I don't know all the repercussions of that, but my guess is it wasn't real great. Don't know the current situation, but the bottom line there is she was not single-minded about the family, about your dad and their marriage and you guys. She got distracted and gave into that. Yeah. So, resentful, hurts. Every day you're walking out the reality of what that did, some of the implications of that, some of the consequences of that. And those are stark reminders of the hurt. Yep. What do you do? You know, I'm not sure I always understand why, but I do know that God has given us the gift of forgiveness just as an opportunity for us to figure out how to lay something down and not carry it the rest of our lives. Yeah, I would encourage you to wrestle with that. I'm always quick to say when it comes to forgiveness, you don't just forgive and forget, and you don't just make the decision and boom, it's over. And no, forgiveness is a process. You wrestle with it, you struggle with it, you yell at God about it, you yell at yourself, you write it down and get angry and put words to what it is that you're upset about. It's all of those things. And at some point, you take a deep breath and you make a decision to say, I'm going to lay this down, I'm going to step away from it, and I'm going to do the best I can to not carry it with me every single day. That doesn't mean you trust these people. Your mom or it doesn't mean it just fixes your relationship and all is well. That's another process, right? That's something that stands on its own. But it is what you have. See, that's so important. It's God's little gift to us so that we don't have to carry stuff the rest of our lives. What other people decisions other people make don't have to be our burden. I think that's important. You got any other questions?
How do you share God's love with someone who refuses
How do you share God's love with someone who refuses to listen? I wonder what they're refusing to listen to. I don't know many situations where when you act in a loving and serving way, people, even though they don't necessarily want it connected to God or don't want to embrace the God connection, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you do something kind for them, I don't think they turn it away. I don't think they will bristle. And so I think one of the ways you share God's love is just through loving kindness. With somebody who doesn't necessarily want to embrace the idea of God or a relationship with God, but you can act in a way that shows how God loves you and works in your life. Wow, that can be very beautiful for the other person. So I would say you could always fall back on that. In terms of getting more overt in your dialogue and conversation, maybe let that flow out of questions, a conversation. If anything, try to let it flow from them. Why are you so nice to me? Well, let me tell you why. Because the Lord's been nice to me. I mean, that sort of thing is not pushing. And if they've already shown that there's a little bit of a wall there, take that indirect approach. Other questions? Great, keep them coming. It's Ask a Counselor Day. Feel free. By the way, if you're just joining us, I'm Ron Deal. We talk about life, relationships, marriage, and family here. And we do this every week about 12:30. Today we just had a conversation about ideas for holidays and step families and managing the stress. You can always replay this video afterwards. And if you don't follow me, swipe from the left on an iOS, swipe from the bottom on an Android, and you can do two things. You can hit the follow button, and then you can also do the share button and let somebody else know about this. Another question? Let's see what we got. Resources for widowed people before marriage. Great question. Well, since the question is about before marriage, I'm assuming that this is a relational question about maybe preparing for marriage, something related to that. So that's where we're going to go. Forgive me if that's not exactly what you're asking. I wrote a book called Dating and a Single Parent, and it is applicable for both widowed people and divorced people. And it's a book that helps you think through relationships as a single parent and the dating process and how should you date, how do you include your kids of all ages, kids young.